All right, buy or sell. The Panthers are all in on Bryce Young. And here's how we set the table on this. Chris Mortensen was on ESPN earlier this week, and he said Bryce Young is the pick. They all love Bryce Young. Now, apparently, I got a text from somebody not with ESPN who I didn't realize moonlights or moonlit or whatever works on the side for ESPN PR, saying that that was just a mock draft they were doing. I mean, I don't care. He said what he said, and I saw it on a different site, and maybe the other site misinterpreted it, but they all love Bryce Young. Look, that tells me something. And there's that noise has been out there. When the Panthers traded up, what's it been, 3-4 weeks ago to number one, the knee-jerk reaction was C.J. Stroud is the pick. The betting market reacted dramatically. Peter King pointed out earlier this week in Football Morning in America that there are people in that organization that really like Bryce Young. And if I don't care if it's a mock draft, if it's an insider, if it's a reporter, and he's going to say Bryce Young is the pick, then yeah, there's something there. The guy's been doing it forever. There's something there. If Chris Mortensen is willing to say in a mock draft setting that the Panthers, when the choices are anyone they want, are going to take Bryce Young, he's hearing something from somebody to make him think that. So I buy it. I'm really starting to think that Bryce Young is going to be the guy, and I'm starting to think that it all traces back to the owner of the team. Because, look, I know that the owner is never going to say, thou shalt pick the guy I want, but the owner has a way. When you have that kind of money, just think about it. Allow yourself to ponder what it would be like to have that kind of money and power, where everyone is hanging on every word you say and interpreting at every possible level the meaning that you may be trying to pass along in the most nonchalant of remarks. It doesn't take much for David Tepper to make it known where he stands in the Bryce Young versus C.J. Stroud versus Anthony Richardson versus Will Levis versus any other quarterback that they could possibly take at number one.
Look, I mean, all you got to say after the dinner they've been going around, they've been meeting with the quarterbacks, right? And before their pro days, and all, the owner would have to say is, that was the best dinner we've had, don't you think? And like that's about as simple as it needs to be, because then it tells you where the ownership is thinking. Or like, after the workout, that's probably the best workout we've seen, isn't it? So it's that simple, where it can be, okay, that's kind of the directive from on the top all the way down. And like you said, you don't have to directly say, I want Bryce Young. Now, he could do that, and that's fine. It's his team. He gets to do that if he wants, but it could be as simple as just whatever the remark is. It's like my favorite saying, who will rid me of this meddlesome priest? You don't actually have to say, somebody go and get rid of this guy. You just ask questions. You just make a couple statements, and that's all it really takes. So if it's Bryce Young that ends up being the pick, great. I still believe that you don't make a trade all the way up to number one without being, let's say, 95 to 99% sure of who you want to pick, even if there are two guys you think you like at the top of the draft. I mean, having gone through what I went through with the Rams when they went up for Jared Goff, and they were still kind of like trying to waft and say, oh, it could be Wentz, it could be Goff, it could be one of those two guys. They made that trade knowing that they love Jared Goff, because you don't do that without having some kind of strong conviction in what it is that you feel or the player you feel can be the leader of your franchise. So if that's the way they end up going, more power to them. I think it would certainly be an interesting thing to happen at the top of the draft.
Yeah, I think the whole Jared Goff, Carson Wentz thing was Jeff Fisher trying to put on a good show for the league. He had very deep ties to the league office, and 100%. He didn't want to ruin the suspense when the time comes out, or the time comes, for the commissioner to come out with the card with the first pick on it. And for the Panthers, it's more organic. It's real. And it can either be an offhand comment about, boy, Bryce Young, I was really surprised. But that was quite a meal. I really learned a lot. I'm really impressed. Or it could be they come away from an interaction with C.J. Stroud and David Tepper just kind of like, but that was kind of surprising, or that was odd. It doesn't take much. When you are somebody who is worth $17 billion, and but for the recent arrival of the Walmart moguls in Denver, you were the richest owner in the NFL, it doesn't take much for someone to glean what you're thinking from the things you say, unless you're able to pull off complete and total detached, disinterested, but why are you there then? You're going to see, human beings are going to show at some point what they're thinking. When there's two choices, and you ultimately got to pick one or the other, at some point, there's going to be something that David Tepper says or does that allows the people who work for him to realize which way he's thinking. And if they're smart, they're going to act accordingly.
That doesn't mean that.
Or if they're not willing to gamble with their careers, they're going to act accordingly. Let's go with the guy the boss wants, because if we go with our guy and it blows up, not only does he say, I told you so, he also says, get the hell out of here.
Right. But I don't think that means that he's not going to allow people to do their jobs, right? I think that you don't spend the money that he's spent on hiring a Frank Reich, on hiring a Jim Caldwell as well.
I agree.
Josh McCown as the quarterback's coach. I mean, David Tepper has been singularly focused on finding a franchise quarterback. So you don't hire those guys to not trust their expertise when it comes to looking at quarterbacks and finding somebody who can be that guy for you. So I don't think that it's all going to be, okay, I'm David Tepper and I'm making this edict, and whether you interpret it my way or not, blah, 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 blah. I think that there's still a level of respecting the opinions of the guys that he's hired.
That's right. You don't have to order the code red, but you trust that the people you've hired will figure out to do the code red on their own. And if they don't, then you start having doubts about them. That's really the takeaway. I'm never going to tell them not to pick the guy that they want, but if their instincts are different than mine, that's the first moment where I start wondering, do I have the right people? And then you pay attention to the guy you wanted and how he does in Houston versus the guy they took that they wanted and how he does in Carolina. And it becomes just part of how the billionaire views his employees as time goes by. Anyway, that part of it's fascinating because, again, we've got these multi-billion-dollar football operations that are ultimately ruled by one person. One person, not a board of directors, not a corporate hierarchy, one person who decides any given day what he or she wants to do with the team. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.